Excuse me, madam. You're standing still in a no parking zone. If you don't get a move on that body, I'll be forced to give you a ticket.
Hey, it's Sergeant Be Safe.
Danger! Danger!
Excuse me, ma'am. The sign says no parking.
I'm not parking. I'm just running into Dunkin' Buck to get my coffee.
You are parked. You're outside of your vehicle and you're illegally parked in a fire lane. Parking in a proper spot and taking a few extra steps is not going to make you late for work. Matter of fact, here comes the fire truck now and you're in the way. This is going to cause a problem. I may need to just have this vehicle towed so the fire department can get in here and deal with this emergency. If the sign says no parking, do as it says. Don't park there.
Oh my gosh. I'm so embarrassed. It would be my fault if a tragedy happened. Thanks for not giving me a ticket, Sergeant Be Safe. Now I know for next time.
Well, just consider this your warning and definitely let this be the last time. I'm Sergeant Be Safe, and it may seem minor, but it's very important. Make sure you park legally. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
Let's go start the show.
Good evening. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's Coach Cleach, motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. And I proved that last week. Anyone who's here in the local area, central Pennsylvania, you guys got that pineapple upside down cake, and it was delicious. It was nice, soft, and moist. And if you haven't got any, I may take some orders for next month. I will let you know. But right now, you guys are tuned in to this great show, Black and Blue. Black and Blue is the podcast that highlights first responders and law enforcement officers, anyone who is rookie, seasoned, or retiree. And we talk about their experiences, their trainings, and their publications. And we have a lot of fun doing it. This is an objective to humanize the badge. So I'm glad you guys are tuning in. This is live and this is interactive. We're streaming on 5 different platforms right now. We're on 2 on Facebook, 1 on LinkedIn, and 2 on YouTube. So therefore, if you're looking for the shout out, make sure you put your name and where you're from in the comments section so I can give you that shout out that you're looking for. Otherwise, I can't see who's on here because each different platform doesn't let me show who's on here. If you have a question also, make sure you put that in the comment section and we will acknowledge your questions to the best of our ability. I got a special guest who's here. I can't wait to get him on here. You guys are going to love him. We're going to have a good time. So make sure you guys get your questions and comments ready. We go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we got a special. We've been doing this going on for a year and a half. We transitioned from the lab to Black and Blue for about a year and a half now, and it's only getting better, and we're steamrolling. I told you before, the Start and Be Safe skits aren't stopping. We got season 2 ready to hit the streets by next month. The Start and Be Safe children's book should be hitting the bookshelves relatively soon. It's a little behind schedule. I know. Don't beat me up about it. A lot of things are going on in this world and the whole realm of things, but we're going to get it done. All right. We also have One Way Publishing. One Way Publishing is the sponsor of this platform itself. One Way Publishing is a book publishing company. I got a couple books that you can see back here. Sorry, the camera angle is different, so I'm a little thrown off right now. But the books right back here, I published 5 books, and they have other clients too that publish their books. Their motto is they could turn a mere thought and turn it into a book that's bought. So if you ever wanted to write your own book, One Way Publishing is a way to make that happen. And you see it in the comment section, and you'll see it scrolling below. Workwithclea.com is how you get, if you want to hire One Way Publishing to help you get that mere thought, turn it to a book that's bought. If you're looking to get on the platform, workwithclea.com is a way to get on the platform. If you'd like to do a voiceover for Start and Be Safe skit, that's the way to do it as well. We're going to have a lot of fun with these upcoming seasons and the transition. So many things coming down the pipeline to make things better. So I hope you're excited. Like I said, Seti P is in here. Good evening to you, Coach. Thank you for tuning in. Please tag, like, and share. Hit the like button on the way in. And if you decide that you don't want to stay here, hit the like button on the way out. And we're going to keep this train moving forward because we build the plane as we fly it, and we have a lot of fun, so on and so forth. But like I said, One Way Publishing is a sponsor, so we're going to give them a quick shout out to let you guys see what they're all about.
Publishing. Have you ever wanted to explain something, tell a story, or leave a piece of you behind? Have you ever wanted to write your own book, but not specifically know how to do it? Well, get ready. One Way Publishing's here. We can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. People need to learn from you. They need to hear that story. Kids need to read that book. Imagine if you wrote your own children's book and get to read it to your kids. Here at One Way Publishing, we can get your fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, instructional, what have you, done. All at a reasonable price and definitely a reasonable time frame. And if you don't believe me, ask Sergeant Be Safe. He's working on his right now. He's definitely writing the best chapter of his life. Make sure you check out his cartoon skits that air on the podcast Black and Blue.
As Sergeant Be Safe said, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And there you have it, One Way Publishing. So make sure you guys check that out at the end of this live. All right. Like I said, the website's scrolling below right now, and it is also in the comment section. And I want to give a couple shout outs to some former guests on the show. First, I'm going to give a shout out to Glenn Topping. He was on here a few weeks ago. I got copies of some of his books. Make sure you guys check them out. Camera angle's a little off. The Making of a Monster right here. What was this one? Operation 1600 here. The Making of a Monster right here. The Real Story of the Hurt and the Rise and Fall of Extremists. Look a Quarter. The Hurt. And if you already saw the show with him on there, you guys know that he was on season 1 of Cops himself, and we aired a small episode of what he was doing on there. Another shout out is to John Poltz. He's an LAPD, and he's also on the SWAT team out there. He's also a fellow author and a hostage negotiator, and he sent his challenge coin of the week right here. Can you guys see it? Pretty cool one, man. I like that. It's the front, the back right there. Challenge coin of the day. Make sure you guys check their shows out, give them the shout outs that they deserve. All right. But we're jumping right into the meat and potatoes of why we're here. All right, why you guys are here. We're having a lot of fun. This is a special guest. I'm glad to have him here. He's a podcaster also. He's a retired police officer. He's a husband. He's a father. And I got to look down at my notes for these accolades because I don't want to mess things up. He's Michigan Patrol retiree. He worked as an FTO, a field training officer. He's a hostage negotiator. He's also worked as a detective. He's currently a business owner and has been for a few years. He's received the Everyday Hero Award, which I can't wait to jump on that. And he also has his off-duty podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I want to welcome Anthony McNeil to the show. But before we do that, Sergeant Be Safe has a few words to say to him. Give him a quick shout out.
Hello, this is Sergeant Be Safe. And I want to welcome all you viewers and our very special guest to Black and Blue. So get your questions ready and enjoy the show.
Film Pack. Subscribe now.
And get that off the screen here, and we will have him jump up here momentarily as soon as my laptop wants to work. There we go. Hey, Anthony, are you there?
Yes, sir. What's going on, CT? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for making yourself available and willing to come on the platform and share your experiences and stories. But first and foremost, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, man. Spent 20 years in law enforcement. Retired 10 years, actually just past 10 years. Southfield Police Department here in Michigan, just outside of Detroit. While I was with the department, I worked patrol. I was an FTO in patrol, hostage negotiator, detective, work property crimes. Just had a blast doing it, man. I really enjoyed my time there. In addition to spending time on the job, I also started a business 30 years ago now, still have the business going. Podcasting and, father, 2 beautiful daughters, new grandfather. My grandson now is 3 months old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, been married to the same beautiful woman now for about 30 years and just enjoying retirement and life, man.
Nice. Hey, that's good to hear. We were just on the show. I just had a guest on the show last week, and we talked about how different, especially from my experience, how difficult it is to start a marriage, remain married, and retire with the same person in this day and age. So you've been married longer than you've actually been a police officer. And congratulations to you and your wife and your family. That's a model that is very rare now. So I commend you both. Yeah, man.
It's not always roses. And you have to really fight to keep it together, right. And we've been blessed where things, when we had our rough times, we worked it out, and we know that our strengths together was better than apart. So here we are.
Congratulations to both of you. And I know I got to give her a huge shout out as well, just because she's put up with someone who did a full career in law enforcement. So I know that's a headache. Only that, you got the entrepreneurial bug too, where you got your own business and other things. So you're pulled on many different levels. There's been times when you were just not with it mentally, where you were probably mentally tired, physically tired. Other times where it might have been, you had a rough day. Trust me, I know, where you don't feel like coming home and talking about work. However, you just gotta find a way to decompress. So I commit. That's a big deal. That is a big deal.
Yeah, man. It's funny because my wife's a nurse. When we got married, she wasn't a nurse at the time. She was actually a social worker, and that was stressful in its own right. And eventually she ended up going into the nursing profession, and she's still a nurse now, almost 15 years in. But she works for an insurance company now as a nurse. So she works from home now, so she loves it. So It's all good.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about how you got the burning desire to get into law enforcement. Was it something that you had as a kid? Did you develop it maybe in high school, college, military years, early 20s? Or is it something that kind of fell upon you and then after you got into it, you just like, this is what I'm going to do?
Man, let me tell you something. I had no plans whatsoever of ever becoming a cop. I just literally happened to be standing in the right place at the right time.
Wow.
You had touched on it. My whole life, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And back when I got out of college, I went away for college for a year. I tore my knee up playing football. When I came back home, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Well, I did. I wanted to start a business, but I didn't have the money or the resources to do it. So I went back to work at a restaurant that I had worked at when I was in high school. And one day, the chief of police, who was the new chief at the time, he just happens to come into the restaurant, and I'm standing up front. And he wants to speak to the new owner or the owner to introduce himself. And, while he's waiting, he looks at me, he goes, "You ever thought about becoming a cop?" And I got to be honest, when he first said it, my thought to myself was, hell no. But at the same time, a light bulb went off because I said, you know what? That's how I can get the money I need to start my business.
So you got it roundabout way.
yeah. And, and he started telling me about the cadet program, and I went down and I applied, and out of 200 applicants, I finished number 3 on the list.
Oh, wow.
And 6 months later, I was in the academy. And, once that was wrapped up, I hit the streets. But, I worked for 3 years. I got the business going. And once I got the business up and running, I actually left the profession. And I was gone for probably about 18 months. And and the business was up and going and running. And, I get a call one day from the chief, and he says, "Hey, I want you to come back to work." And health, if you've never been self-employed before, healthcare is expensive. So when he called me, I had missed a job, so I was back at it, man. And and I was blessed to keep the business, and it's been almost 30 years now. I still got the business going.
Okay, what kind of business is it, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I bought a janitorial franchise.
Okay, all right, and that nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yep. Like I said, it's been 30 years now. I'm now the number 3 franchisee in the state of Michigan, and still going strong. I'm on that downside, like I said earlier, we got the first grandchild on the way, and now that I'm retired and everything, I want to put that on the back burner and travel more and do things like that, but it's all good. It is what it is. I can't complain because it really has afforded us a life that we probably wouldn't have been able to afford otherwise. So.
Gotcha. And Sheriff Leroy Martin, former guest on the show. Greetings, everyone. God bless. Thank you for tuning in, sir. Yes. So how difficult was it, I should say, to maintain a business while working as well? I mean, I know the shift work can be very taxing on the mind, body, and soul.
Man, let me tell you something. It was incredibly hard on me because I was working midnights at the time.
Ooh, yeah.
And I had 2 newborns at home, or 2 new little babies at home. And, thank God my wife didn't work the first 5 years, that we were married, because she was home with the kids and everything. But it was really hard, and I remember the first night we got our first accounts. It was just her and I. We dropped our daughter off at a 24-hour daycare, which we regretted doing, and what should have taken 2 hours to complete this first account took us literally all night long. Wow. And I had to go to work the next day. At the time, I was working in a detective bureau, and this was before I left the department, and I was working in a detective bureau. I was as a detective at the time, and Man, I remember that day. It was rough. I was half awake, but once I left, and I went back, that's when I started working midnights, and it was really hard, but you do what you got to do, and that was always been a dream of mine. So, I made it work.
Gotcha. And not to jump ahead, but what is it like for those officers that can't wait to get to retirement? What is life like after law enforcement, where you can actually put your heels up just a little bit?
Man, listen, I work more now than I did when I was working.
I know the feeling. I'm still working.
No, seriously though, it's my job, my career. I loved it up until the last 5 years.
Okay.
And because of health issues, and I'll go into this later, but because of some health issues, I was forced to come off the road and go inside and work. And that was a position I absolutely hated. But I'll get into that story in a little bit, because it's really enforced something to me that I always believe, and that is that everything happens for a reason, good, bad, or otherwise. Sure. But retirement is great, man. I was out playing golf this morning with one of my buddies that recently retired, and my wife and I, we've just been traveling. We went to Hawaii, and just my daughter and I just got back from San Francisco. My wife and I are going on a cruise here in July. So, I don't want to rub it in, but
and that's exactly what he's doing. Wait, where's the mic at? And that's exactly what he's doing. But it's cool. You deserve it, though. All jokes aside,
man. But you know what they'll do when you put in 20 years on this job, people don't understand what it does to you physically and mentally. And it's tasking on you, your family, and everybody else. So if you're blessed enough to make it to that day and live a life after law enforcement, hey, live it up. That's what I say.
And as you should. And shout out Leroy Martin's got a couple comments. He said, "Been there, brothers, absolutely." And talking about retirement, like, "Oh no, you still got to work." LOL. But yeah, actually, you know it. I know it too. To see guys make it to the end of the career and unfortunately just fade away into non-existence or pass away or for lack of a better self-delete. Like 3 to 5 years after retiring. I mean, it's kind of like you work your whole life to retire, and then to retire and just be done is not the way to go. So to actually have life after retirement is a big deal. So to rub it in is a good thing. It shows everyone who's trying to get to the end of the race that there's something to look forward to. That you still there's life at the end of this job.
Yeah, and I will say this, man. I not had the business. I don't know if I would have been like a lot of people that leave the profession and then go into security or, go hire on someplace else. I don't know if I would have done that or not, but I can honestly say not having to do that, if you're close to retirement, or even if you're not close to retirement, start thinking about it, because the day is going to come, and you don't want to, trust me, you don't want to have to put on a uniform the rest of your life. Right. And if you can set yourself up and do things to put yourself in a position where you don't have to do that once you finally leave the job, it's just awesome, man. And like I say, my business, it's stressful, but it's my stress. And it's had I not done it, I don't know if my life would have turned out the way it has. So I can't say nothing bad about it, but retirement is great, man. And I highly recommend it to everyone.
I'll be there soon eventually. But I kind of want to take a couple steps back through the process of actually, I know your chief is something that sticks out vividly in your mind as someone who came into the restaurant and got you into law enforcement. But just besides law enforcement, even with your business, even through life, even as being a father, is there any mentors or anyone who influenced you to help you become the person that you are today?
Absolutely. One gentleman that rest in peace to this gentleman, Norris Turner Sr. Norris, he was father of 2 of my closest friends. And what Mr. Turner taught me was how to be a family man.
Okay.
You know, he when you think of Mr. Turner and his family, the whole Turner family, you think of the Cosbys.
Okay.
Or the Cosby Show.
Yeah,
And you know, Mr. Turner, he was the one that actually put that entrepreneur bug in me. You know, that entrepreneurship bug in me. And he was just a good man. You know, my father, rest in peace to him also, but my dad was an alcoholic. And when he didn't drink, he was the best father on the planet. But even from, you know, my dad, despite his shortcomings, I still learned something from him, and that was what not to do in a marriage. And you know, to this day, my wife and I try not to get in arguments with her, because I told her, I said, listen, I grew up watching my mom and dad argue. I used to have a job where I had to sit and listen to people argue. You know, when I come home, I don't want to have to argue. You know, and Mr. Turner was the balance to that. You know, and he really taught me and showed me what it's like to be a good father, a good husband, and just a good person. You know, so he was probably definitely one of my biggest mentors, and as far as that goes.
Shout out to him. Sounds like a real life Cliff Huxtable and Robert Kiyosaki all in one.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. So while you were working in law enforcement, you did patrol, you were FTO, hostage negotiator, detective. Are there any stories or experiences that kind of good, bad, positive, negative, that kind of stick out in your mind that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, and I know when people go on law enforcement shows and, you know, they're asked to tell stories, they usually want to tell about the car chase and the shoot them up and all that stuff. But my story is a little different. It kind of goes back to what I just said that I touched on previously about my last 5 years on the job. It started back in 92.
Okay.
My wife and I had just gotten married, and I'm gonna try to make this short because it's kind of a lengthy story. But my wife and I had just gotten married, and a week after we got married, I became very ill. I started having stomach aches, and you know, I was stubborn and didn't want to go to the doctor or anything. But I was working afternoons at the time, and one day I get home from work, and I told my wife, I can't take this pain in my stomach anymore. So we go to the ER, and you know, they tell me, you got gas, go home and drink some prune juice, you'll be fine. 3 days later, I was being rushed to the hospital. Looked like I was 9 months pregnant.
Wow.
They took me in for emergency surgery, and they didn't think I was going to make it through the night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it turns out I had gangrene in 3 feet of my intestines, and they didn't know what happened, what caused it. But I ended up spending about two months in the hospital. Fast forward to 2008. And my family and I are on vacation, and I'm loading up the car, and I was walking up about 7 or 8 steps, and you would have thought I just ran a marathon because I was sweating so bad. Really? And my wife, you know, being a nurse, she thought I was having a heart attack, but it wasn't that. And you know, I took a seat, sat down for a minute. We flew home, and the next day I went into work, and my leg was hurting so bad that I'd literally end up taking about 3,000 milligrams of Motrin just to get through the pain.
Wow.
And I went to the doctor the next day, and I thought I had bronchitis. That's what I thought the shortness of breath I was experiencing when we was on vacation was. Turns out my doctor says, no, you don't have bronchitis. And I started telling him about the pain in my leg, and he looks at my leg and he says, you have a blood clot. And I said, that's funny, doc. My sister had a blood clot a couple of months ago. Wow. And he says, you know what, just to be safe, I'm gonna send you down for an ultrasound. So I go down, I'm doing the ultrasound, I'm laying on the table, technician and I are talking about my vacation and all this, and right in the middle of the examination, she says, uh-oh. I'm like, uh-oh, what?
Don't say that while I'm laying here.
Exactly. And she says, I'm sorry, Mr. McNeil, that slipped out. She says, but have you been short of breath? And I said, yes. She says, we got to get you to the emergency room right now. You had the largest blood clots I've ever seen. Turns out I had blood clots in both legs that went from below my knees up into my hips, and a 5-inch piece had broke off and entered my lungs. That's why I was having a hard time breathing.
Wow.
And it's funny. Like I say, everything happens for a reason, you know. And I turns out I have a blood clotting disorder that I got from my dad. Okay. And because of that, I'm on blood thinners the rest of my life. So as a result, my doctors told the department that I could no longer work the road. I had to come off the road. So in order for me to keep my job, you know, they moved me to the front desk, which was a position that I hated. I absolutely hate. Oh yeah. I mean, anybody that's worked the front desk know what I'm talking about. And during that time, it changed me as a person. I started to hate people. I became very cynical, just a nasty person.
Right.
And during the time that I was on the desk, one thing that would occur at least twice a week was a parent would bring their child in and say, you know, I can't control them. Can you talk to them? This, that, and the other thing. Well, one day a lady comes in with her 12-year-old son and she says, I'm leaving him here. You do whatever you want with him. He's not coming back to my house. He hits me. He hits my mom. He's no longer welcome. And I was having a bad day that day. So I got up. I went around the desk. I told that young man to come over with me. I took him over out of camera view and I looked at him and I said, hit me. He clenched his fist and he started crying. And I said, what you crying for? You was a man when you was punching on your mother and your grandmother. Now you got a man in your face. Go ahead, hit me. Take one swing and then I'm gonna wear your behind out. Needless to say, he didn't swing.
Right.
But he and I end up having a conversation for about 30 minutes. And it was a typical story where no male figure was in his life. He was hanging with the wrong people, doing bad in school. You know the story.
Yep.
And the last thing I said to him was, look, I don't know you. You don't know me. But if I get an inkling that you put your hands on another human being, I will personally track you down and beat your you know what. And he and his mom left. And that was about 8-9 months before I retired. Okay. And on the last day that I was working, they were having a party for me at the station. And I get called up to the front lobby. And I walk out through the doors and this lady is standing there. And she says, Officer McNeil, I heard today was your last day and I just wanted to come up and ask if I can give you a hug. I'm like, for what? Yeah, sure. And she says, I just want to say thank you. Ever since that day you spoke to my son, he's been a different child.
Wow.
He stopped hitting me. He stopped hitting my mom. He's doing better in school. You know, and the kid, he was actually failing. And I later learned that he went on and got a scholarship to college and he's doing quite good for himself.
Nice.
And it was that moment I realized why everything I went through with my health occurred. It was so that I could be put on that desk the moment that young man came through the door. And that's why I say everything happens, good, bad, or otherwise, for a reason. And that's my story that sticks out to me the most. And I know that's a long story, but
that's fine. That's necessary.
But yeah, that's my story that sticks out the most, man. You know, because had I not been there on that desk, who knows what that young man life would have turned out to be. You know,
that's a great story, and I'm glad you shared it. I mean, it's it's good to hear stories. That's community policing at its finest, right there. The public always talks about community policing 101, and I mean, especially now with the rise of a lot of single mothers coming to the station, with the rise of children acting all sorts of ways to actually make an impact on, at least, if nothing else, at least one out of the many. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're going through something bad, man, just realize that it's for a purpose. You know, sometimes we never know what that purpose is. You know, but it's always a purpose behind it. And if nothing else, it just builds you and makes you stronger.
Yes, it does. And I'm glad that they caught the blood clot disorders at a reasonable time to be able to take quick action on it. And this is coming from, I'm a second generation cop. My dad was a cop. He was a cop for 11 years until his death, and he died because a blood clot went to his heart.
Wow. So sorry to hear that, man. I
appreciate it, but just bringing it home to understand that, yes, when you said blood clots, I mean, I was like, wow, it hits home full circle that way too.
Yeah. My dad had he was protein S deficient, and I inherited it, and one of my daughters now have it, and it's all good. At least now we know what it is. Back in '92, they didn't know what caused it. But turns out it was a blood clot that entered my intestines, and it killed the blood flow to my intestines, which caused the gangrene. So it's all good. I'm still here, knock on wood. My doctor always teases me and says, "Man, you got 9 lives, and other than the grace of God, I can't explain why you still here."
That's good. That's good. You got more lives than a cat. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to pause for the call. Sergeant Be Safe is going to have his interlude, and we're going to jump right back into this interview. So stay tuned.
Sergeant Be Safe here. And do you think I fight crime all by myself? Well, I don't. There's a whole team of us, and right now I'm going to introduce you to one of them. He's on his way here now. When he gets here, I want you to give him a warm welcome.
Hey crew, Captain Chaos here. I'm also a canine handler. Here's my dog Kraken.
Release the Kraken. Dance with my dogs in the nighttime.
Together we fight crime and keep everyone safe.
He's absolutely right. And he has a partner that rides along with him every day. It's his canine. And they work together to sniff out crooks that like to cause you and me trouble.
You guys know me. I'm Rob You Blind. No, I don't live here. This door was left unlocked. You guys make it very easy for me to steal your valuables. Sometimes I get my friends Chance Wilder and Treacherous Tony to help me.
Chance Wilder at your service. I'm the computer hacker and IT whiz. The scammer of all scammers. My friends Rob You Blind and Treacherous Tony often help me.
Yeah, I'm Treacherous Tony. I deal illegal drugs and pills.
This is just terrible news. Avoid him at all costs.
My new friends Robbie Blind and Chance Wilder brought me into their crew. I don't sell it to kids. I give it to them.
Ooh, party pooper, be safe. You can't stop me. I know my rights. I'm just walking around here.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
Film Pack.
With more chaos comes more confusion. However, I'm Sergeant Be Safe, and I'll continue to stay here to give you your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
And there you have it, Sergeant Be Safe and his partner, and along Captain Chaos and his dog Kraken, along with all the bad guys in that universe. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We got more Sergeant Be Safe commercials coming through, but we're jumping back in this interview, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. We're learning about Anthony McNeil, him being a business owner, him keeping his marriage together, him being a great father, mentors that he had with him, stories that he had impacting the lives of our youth while he was tragically put on the desk. Tragically, I say that because I know what it's like to have desk duty. Normally, that's part of either you're injured and you're working the desk, part of your recovery, or it's part of a punishment. So it's not normally fun to actually work the desk. And I know you get all the phone calls, you get all the walk-ins, and I'll just leave it at that because but we learned a lot about that situation. But jumping back into this interview, what you got what was the award called, the Everyday Hero Award? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a habit of just kind of falling into things. And this award was one of them.
Okay.
I'm almost embarrassed to even tell it. But, but one night, my partner and I, we were working midnight, and it was a Sunday night, man. It was probably about 2-3 in the morning. It was quiet night. And we had stopped to get some coffee, and we're sitting in this donut shop. And all of a sudden, we hear this loud crash. And we look at each other like, what in the world was that? And as I go to the window, I see a wheel rolling down the street, a tire rolling down the street. And I look over to my left, and all I can see in the intersection is one car totally engulfed in flames.
Ooh.
So we go running over, and we call, let dispatch know, and because the fire department was literally 3 minutes away.
Okay.
And we couldn't tell if anybody was in the car or not, but I realized someone had to be in because the doors were locked. But like I said, the car was completely engulfed, and I ended up smashing the window out. And when I smashed the window out, I could see that there was a person inside. And it was a young guy. He was unconscious, and somehow he ended up underneath the dashboard on the floor. Ooh. And he wasn't a small guy. But we ended up pulling him out and got him out just in time. And like I say, the car was completely engulfed. But what we didn't realize was about 40 yards away on the other side of the overpass was a second car.
Ooh.
And it turns out they both were drunk, going opposite directions, and hit head on. One of the cars was doing about 70, and his car, I think his car was the one doing the lesser speed because he got the bulk of the damage. And it's ended up knocking his car into the intersection, and the other car stayed, like I said, probably about 40 yards, literally 40 yards away. And the person in that car, you know how, they do, and they ride the seats tilted back. He didn't have his seatbelt on. And at the impact, his head went forward, and his head got caught on the seatbelt thing up here that attaches the seatbelt, and it ripped his scalp open.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. So that's what we end up getting the award for. Like I say, again, just in the right place at the right time. Because had we not been there, by the time the fire department got there, he would have been burned up.
Oh, there you have it. Sometimes being at the right place at the right time does save lives more than just youth. It saves lives of those that are on the road and going to and from places.
Yep. Like I said, for some reason, I have a habit of just being in the right place at the right time, I guess. But it worked out.
Yeah. So is that what gave you the Everyday Hero? Is that what gave you the idea to start your podcast? Is that your podcast is you have, how many podcasts do you have, first of all? Don't you have one that's the Everyday Hero and also one the Off Duty podcast, or am I incorrect?
Well, I have the Off Duty podcast, and then I have the Everyday Heroes is actually my podcast network.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and I actually named it that because of the award that I got. And the podcast network is a network that I started. It's made up of 8-9 first responder shows. Okay. There's a couple of nurses, a couple of firefighter wives, 2 firefighters, several law enforcement officers, a military show. And it was just something that I started to bring shows together so that we could kind of pool our resources together and try to monetize, towards sponsorships and things like that. But as we know, doing this, not everybody sticks with it because it's a lot of work. And so some of those shows, the creators didn't stick with it. And so they've kind of left the network, and I haven't really put a whole lot of effort behind the network right now because I've been so busy with my own show and other things that I got going on. So, but that's what that was all about, and that's where the name came from, because of the award I got.
Okay, I got you. And I know we were talking behind off camera. Not only do you have your Off Duty podcast, but what other podcasts have you done or are you working on?
Yeah, The pandemic was a time for being creative. I tell you, man.
Well, in retrospect, see, I was going live before the pandemic, and my numbers were rising. And then the pandemic hit, and everyone became a talk show host. So my numbers decreased. I was actually mad because everyone got the bug where I was losing people and everyone was on the rise. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but I started several shows, and once the off-duty podcast started to take off, I kind of put those on the back burner. But two of the bigger shows that I've started, or two of the other shows that I started, one was called We Black Fathers, which is a show where I interview Black fathers about fatherhood and just being a man and a Black man and that whole experience. The other one is called Out the Trap. And that's ODA trap, out the trap, not the trap. And this is another podcast that I started for Black folks that play golf. And I really like the format that I use there because I do a asynchronous type interview where people answer questions that are previously recorded, and then I edit it all together. But it's a lot of fun. And it's kind of I did it to give, people that are obviously African American that play the game of golf an opportunity to explain how they got into the game, their love for the game, and what the game means to them. And it's actually has caught on and it's doing pretty good. Okay,
nice. The entrepreneurial spirit, the law enforcement spirit, and the podcasting spirit are all in one. I mean, wrapping itself all in one is not an easy task because each individual aspect is difficult in itself. And I know, so I know you're a busy man. While you were working law enforcement and as a retiree, your plate's still full.
Yep. Like I say, man, I do more now than I did when I was working, but it's a good thing, because the off-duty podcast, it keeps me tied to the profession. And just doing all of this stuff, honestly, man, it just keeps my brain fresh. It keeps keeps my brain working, So it's a good thing in that aspect, Yep.
Well, let me ask you this: the way things are, I get a lot of viewers that watch the replay. Most of them, I used to coach football at the youth level football, and most of those kids are either from ages 9th grade to some are freshmen in college. And young adults may ask, law enforcement's kind of not the thing I want to do. You guys aren't well liked. I don't feel like going through all this headache. And then some are like, I kind of want to do it, but I don't know how to get into it. Should I do this? Should I take this class? Should I join the military? What kind of expectations did I have? What would you say to individuals today, this generation that's coming into the workforce, that's thinking about getting into a career in law enforcement?
Prepare yourself, because once you get in, it's not like what you see on TV. It's not the 30-minute TV shows. You have to wear many different hats in this profession. You have to be a people's person. You have to be able to think quick on your feet. You have to be the one thing I always tell people when I was at FTO is that every interaction you have leaves an impression. Good, bad, or otherwise. We always try to start at good. And sometimes it don't always stay there, but we always try to start there.
I can relate.
And if you're going to come into this profession, the profession has changed from when I started. It's because of social media, because of the cameras, because of all of that. You really are the people are watching you.
Right.
Literally. And you have to carry yourself accordingly. And just remember that if you're going to come into this job, just because you put that uniform on doesn't make you God. Okay. It doesn't make you God. You're more, when you can go out and you can relate to people and talk to people, that will take you so much further than pounding on your chest. That was one, I was a hostage negotiator, and I'll never forget there was a young lady that a young girl that had I think the baby was 2. I had a run with her one night where she was talking about, going crazy. And I just sat and talked to her and just let her vent and everything. And kind of built up a rapport with her. Well, about a week later, I'm on another run and I hear a run come out at her. She lived in a trailer park. I hear a run come out at a trailer park and I hear her name, and they're saying that she's now barricaded herself inside with the baby. Oh. So I'm stuck on this run that I was on and I couldn't get down there right away. But by the time I get down there, they had called the SWAT team or the CERT team and all this other stuff. And, being a negotiator, I broke all the rules. I go down there, I pull up, and they were down there probably for about 30-40 minutes. And I get out of my car and I walk up to the door and I pound on the door and I say, Natasha, open the damn door, girl. And she goes, Officer McNeil, is that you? I said, yeah, open the door. She opened the door and we sat down and talked. And that's all she wanted to do was just talk, And my last day or my last week on the job, being a negotiator, we had arrested a prominent pastor's son. And he was bipolar and he was a big boy. I think he was 6'7", probably 340. Woo. And yeah. And when they put him up in the cell, he was causing problems with some of the other inmates. So they had to put him back in isolation. He got back there and started flooding the toilets and all this stuff. And they needed to extract him out of the cell. So my lieutenant asked me to go up and talk to him. Well, as I get off the elevator to go back to talk to him, there's a young officer there that's taking my place as negotiator. And I look at him and I say, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to talk to this guy. And I go, and I look at him and I say, well, how successful you think that conversation is going to be? He goes, what do you mean? I go, you're standing there with a taser and black gloves on. How you think that conversation gonna go?
He's ready for plan B.
And I say that to say that you got to learn to talk to people. And once you learn how to talk to people, it'll take you so much further in this job. So if you're thinking about getting into this profession, yeah, they're gonna teach you all this defensive tactics stuff, how to shoot and all that stuff. But probably one of the most important lessons you will learn is how to talk to people.
Yes. Communication is key. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember one of my first FTOs with a former department I was with, he said that the best thing you can learn about this job, and he hates to use this comparison, but it's something that stuck with me and resonated with me, is he said, you got to learn how to become a used car salesman. I'm like, I don't want to go out here and sell lemons to people and all that, lemon cars and all that. He's like, no, but if you learn how to talk to people and get to understand what they're looking for, a used car salesman will make a whatever kind of car, the worst kind of car, look like a prize to whoever's needing to buy it. Not trying to scam people, but you need to go out here and have the conversation, because you all the adventures you're looking for, all everything else, you'll get that stuff still will happen, but it's better to have the ones that you can avoid and actually make someone's life better. John Pulse, great advice. Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. But let me ask you the second half of that question. And we're seeing this now after C-19 with the protests, with the riots, things like that. Law enforcement is very cyclical. Sometimes we're at the very top, which is very rare, and it doesn't seem like it lasts that long, where everyone loves us. Everyone's saying, hey, thank you for your service. We love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Most times we're in the middle, where we're appreciated, or we're not seen until we're needed. We're not appreciated until we're needed, or we're just there. Right. Other times we're at the very bottom, where it seems like the entire world hates us, and no matter if it's the media, social media, news media, people in the public, it just seems like it's just a bad deal all the way around. And because of that, we got seasoned officers that are doing the quiet quitting, that are, if they can retire, they're getting out as soon as possible. Or you guys that are just hanging on by a thread. Those seasoned officers that still have a little bit to go, what kind of advice would you give them as far as it comes to law enforcement?
If you are not happy getting up, putting that uniform on and going to work every day, get out. Because you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're not doing the people that you serve in that community any favors. Because you're going to end up like I was on that desk, unhappy, miserable, and really just a negative individual. And it's not worth it to you or the people that you're going to be around that need to that want to experience that. You know, so if you are able to, and I know it comes down to the money and the pensions and all that stuff, while people try to hang on, but you're not doing anybody a favor. And and what will make it easier for a lot of people is don't allow police work to become your identity. Have something else in your life that is a purpose that you're driven towards, because if the job becomes your identity, as you get closer to having to give it up, it becomes very hard,
right? And
you kind of get in a funk or a fog where you don't know what's next. So you go into security and those things. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're going into it with the attitude that this isn't what I really want to do. And so you're still stuck in the same boat. And I tell a lot of stories, but one story I really want to share is, and it goes along with this, was when I left the department the first time to start my janitorial business, they had thrown a little go away party for me. And there was one guy that showed up who we labeled the department a-hole. And this guy was miserable. And it wasn't until that night that I realized why he was so miserable. He had a couple of adult beverages, and he came over to me and he says, Tony, I just want you to know that I'm very envious of you. And I said, why is that? And he said, because you had the guts to give up the security of this job and go do what you want to do, which was start my business. And I said, that's always something that's driven me, something that I wanted to do. And he, like I said, once somebody get a couple of pops on them and they just keep talking. And I found out, he had some things that he wanted to do outside of law enforcement, but he was afraid to give up the job to go do them. And as a result, he wasn't doing what he was passionate about. And because he wasn't doing what he was passionate about, he was miserable. And that being miserable carried over into all other aspects of his life.
Right.
So once you figure out what your purpose is or your passion is, you feel like you now have meaning to life. And when you get that, that's when growth starts. And that's when life is fun. That's when life can become fun, and my wife still calls me a grumpy old man or a crotchety old man because it comes out, and that's going, if you're in law enforcement, it's going to always be there, but at the end of the day, you got to do what makes you happy.
Right.
And if the job is something that you're just clinging on to for the check or for the pension, life is short.
Yes, it is.
Go do what you want to do that's going to make you happy. Plain and simple.
Good advice. I remember, I forget who I interviewed. It was sometime this year where they said that they work with the police department. They don't work for the police department. They work with the police department. A police officer is something they do. It's not something they am. They still are a police officer, but that is not their full identity. And I'm saying that to say they had hobbies outside of law enforcement. They had other interactions. They had other social network, a group of friends that they did interacted with outside of law enforcement, which also gave them the balance. So when it came time to get out of this profession, to retire, then it didn't hurt as much. That actually have something else to look forward to. It didn't hurt as much because they didn't identify as, okay, I am a cop, and that's all I'm going to be. And eventually we're all going to hit the end of the race, whether it's through injury, anything else, through old age. Father Time's going to catch up to us where we're not going to be able to jump over that fence, drive that car, or work behind the desk and do admin or whatever it may be. Eventually it's going to catch up. And then that identity shouldn't have to go away of who you actually are just because you can no longer perform the duties that you could in your youth.
Absolutely. I did a episode on my show about that topic, finding your purpose. And I received a message from a young man who was in the profession and he says that was him. He saw himself as nothing more than a police officer, and he felt like that's all he could do. And as much as he wanted to get out, he couldn't because he didn't know what else to do.
Right.
And I just told him, you have to find what you're passionate about. Don't just do something just to do it. You got to have some passion and a purpose behind it. Yep. And once you do that, everything else becomes a little clearer. Because like I said, now you feel like you got some meaning as to why you're doing what you're doing. And it's hard though, man. It's hard because we fall into that trap of chasing the dollar with the overtime and all that stuff, and that pension, they dangle it in front of you. But it's and you know what's funny? I've probably, especially the last couple of episodes, or the last few episodes I've had a lot of my guests who had not approached that 20-year mark or whatever, but a lot of them have left the profession.
Wow.
I've had 2 guests that just packed up and moved to Costa Rica.
Wow.
Yeah, they just packed up and moved to Costa Rica, but I take my hat off to people like that, because why stay doing something you don't want to do that's making everybody miserable around you?
Yeah, yourself included, and everyone else in the public, and it's just toxic, and toxicity seems to grow.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna jump right into a Sergeant Be Safe commercial and come right back with a few more questions. And make sure you guys tag, like, and share. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
Run up in your grip like my name was Search Warrant.
Hey guys, I just got this vape from Treacherous Tony. It tastes pretty nasty, but I look cool with it, right? You guys should give it a try. Be cool like me.
Nah, you look pretty stupid. And if you get caught with that thing, you're gonna be in big trouble. Besides, I heard Treacherous Tony is that lame guy who likes to come around and hang around little kids. If you're hanging with him, you must be lame too. Come on, guys, let's get out of here before we get in trouble like Cooper too.
Oh no, Sergeant, be safe.
You kids get out of here. Cooper, tell me where you got that from.
I won't snitch.
I don't see what's so funny. Vape pens like that can lead to harder drugs and cause more problems for you. They're not appropriate for little kids such as yourself. So I suggest you do the right thing and tell me who you got it from.
Treacherous Tony gave it to me.
Tristan, I want you to take me there now. Are you?
Yes, I'm Treacherous Tony. What do you want?
Do you have a card? And why are you selling this to kids?
Yeah, I got a medical marijuana card. I don't sell it to kids. I give it to them.
You give it to them? What kind of an adult are you?
It's a vape pen. What's the big deal?
Are you kidding me? The big deal?
Get out of here, Sergeant No Safe.
Sometimes I just wanna... Yep, I think I will.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
That's right, you won't. You're off to jail. Put your hands up and come with me. Remember, kids, what's made for adults aren't suitable for kids. Those vape pens may look cool, but they are not good for you. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Oh no! Sergeant, be safe!
Subscribe now.
And there's Sergeant Be Safe and the Valueless Vape Pen. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. That was a lot of fun to make as well. Like those Sergeant Be Safe commercials. Like I said, season 2 is coming out in June. I can't wait. But we're going to jump right back into this interview. We got Anthony McNeil here. We've been having a tremendous time here. I don't want to monopolize this time, but I do have a few more questions if you are willing and able, sir.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. First question is, with your experience in law enforcement, with working the career for 20 years, what kind of changes do you see that are necessary now for anyone who's looking to get in the profession or anyone who's still currently in the profession today?
Changes in terms of
interaction with the public community. It changes in form, I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied. Changes in the way of handling calls, responses to calls, and things along those lines.
I think it goes back to what I said before. Just remember that the times that have changed, or what has changed, the biggest change in my opinion is everybody got a camera with them.
Yeah.
And you just have to be mindful of that. And in today's world, know that, like you said earlier, about us being at the top, the middle, and the bottom. We spend a lot of time at the bottom, unfortunately, and not everybody likes the police, and they're just looking for a reason, to put you on social media.
Yeah.
And they're not going to play the whole clip. As a matter of fact, I had this was back during the George Floyd thing. I had a young man reach out to me, and we had a very good conversation. It was all through chat, but it was a very good conversation. He was asking, why they don't do this and why that. And turns out I go to his profile a couple of days later, and he then took this whole conversation. Apparently he went to some other officers that he's found online and had similar conversations, and he took pieces and bits of what we said and clipped them all together, but he added it and twisted it and talked about, F the police and all of this other stuff. And so, people have their agendas, and to you, you're nothing more than an opportunity to get a few likes or whatever on social media. So you just really have to bear in mind that when people put stuff on social media, it's usually out of context and without all the facts. And nobody nowadays takes time to research or get the facts. They just go with whatever they see online. Yep. And we've seen the videos of officers apprehending someone or speaking to someone, and because somebody decided to take 30 seconds of a 10-minute interaction, and post it online, no more. We know how that ends. No one else. And the sad thing about that is now you have a lot of the municipalities and everything, the people in charge, who will take those 30-second clips and say, oh, well, that's a bad look for us. And now, officers are getting fired and all this other nonsense. So just be careful, man, because times really have changed. People have changed. We're in a different time, obviously, in the world, and the world has changed. Yes. And you just have to be aware of that and know that you can't go out there and act a fool when you put that uniform on, because there is somebody watching.
Yep. Good advice, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Absolutely 100% correct.
Yep.
Yes. So, like I say, we had a great interview, and I appreciate you coming on here. And through the course of conversation, I may have forgotten to ask you a question, or I may have jogged your memory on something that you wanted to touch on. Is there anything else that you would like to say to any of us? Right now, the floor is yours.
I just want to tell everybody, like I just said, we live in a different time in the world, a complex time in the world. And if we could all just remember what September 12th was like in America.
Yep.
September 12th, we all were Americans. Regardless of color, race, religion, whatever, we all were Americans, at least for that short period of time. And we were united America. And you have to realize that there are people out there with agendas, and that could be media, politicians, corporations. All these people have agendas, and they found a platform and a method that they can use to manipulate and get their message out there and keep everybody divided. and that is through social media. When social media came out, it was a great thing. It was a platform that was used to keep people together and bring people closer. But like everything else in life, those that had agendas to get richer or gain more power saw a way to use that platform to divide and conquer and get richer and to create more power for themselves. So just be aware that when you guys are out there online and you see these 30-second clips of whatever it is, whether it's law enforcement or anything else, do your due diligence and get the whole story, and when you do that, you don't become one of these knuckleheads that just have a stupid comment to attach to something that you see,
right?
Because you don't know all the facts. And I got to share one more story. I know I tell a lot of stories, but
that's fine.
Back during the Trayvon Martin incident, there was a young lady that I used to work with. She was a perfect example of what I'm talking about. She got caught up in that rabbit hole of conspiracies and all that stuff. And she made a post one day and she said, "This is the real Trayvon Martin that nobody wants you to know about, that the media doesn't want you to see." It was a picture of the rapper The Game. And I said to her, "That's not Trayvon Martin. That is the rapper The Game. All you have to do is Google his name." "No, you don't know what you're talking about. That's Trayvon Martin. They're trying to manipulate you into thinking that he's this little innocent kid, blah, 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 blah." At that moment, I realized I was talking to a dumbass. And and I stopped responding. But she was a perfect example of someone that falls into those traps. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people like that. And I have a podcast that I started called Social Stupidity that goes into this and talks about this. So, just to the world, y'all just be nice.
Yes.
Just be nice. just be nice. A lot of the stuff that we argue about, it ain't even worth the time and the effort. It really isn't.
A few days later.
and half the time, most of us don't even know what we're talking about in the first place. We just want to be part of the conversation. So just be nice. That's my advice to everybody. Just be nice. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Not everybody's out to get you. Not everybody's out to take something from you. Not everybody's this or that. Just be nice to people.
Good advice. Good advice. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Anthony McNeil on the show. Wonderful show. Wonderful information, learning about him, learning about his trials and tribulations, some tragedies, some triumphs, working the desk, working with community policing, with having an impact on the individual's life, receiving awards, owning his own business, thriving that business, raising his family, continuing staying married throughout the process of law enforcement, made it to the end of retirement and expressed how he's busier now than he was while working. And he's got podcasts out the wazoo and more things coming down the pipeline. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, give him a round of applause in the comment section for coming on here. I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you donating your time and coming on the show. It's been a great show. I enjoyed having the conversation and learning more about you. Absolutely.
Thank you, man. And one thing I forgot to mention, if I can, real quick, my way of giving back, like I said, law enforcement has been a good thing to me. And through my podcast, I've wanted to give back. So what I did was I launched a coffee brand called Blue Java.
Okay.
And I've partnered up with a former guest of my podcast, a former NYPD detective by the name of Robert Garland, who started a platform called Fund the First. I'm sorry. It's a crowdsourcing platform, kind of like GoFundMe, except for first responders.
Okay.
And through Blue Java, each month we're donating a percentage of the sales to different campaigns to help first responders on that platform.
Okay.
So please go to bluejava.coffee. That's bluejava.coffee. Order some of our great tasting coffee and let's help some first responders that are in need. And the coffee tastes great, by the way. So you'll love it. We have 4 flavors out right now, and we got some more coming.
Okay. I just put that in the comment section. BlueJava.coffee right there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Again, I appreciate you having you on the show. I'm looking forward to watching you flourish. Hopefully, this isn't the last time that we have a conversation and have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And we're going to keep this thing moving. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you guys for tuning in. You've been part of a great platform for this episode. We go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I got a special guest coming in next week. I don't want to tell you who they are because I want you to tune in. It's going to be another great show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please make sure you tag, like, and share. Tell your friends about it. This platform is here to humanize the badge. If you're thinking about getting into law enforcement, this is your show. If you're already in law enforcement and want to see how other individuals who have been in law enforcement or are in law enforcement interact and how they deal with situations, this is your show. If you're in the public, a civilian, and you have no idea what law enforcement officers do during their off time while we're training, while we're writing books or anything like that, this is your show where you can ask your questions, where we can get that information out there, and we can carry this torch on forward because we all have to live together and we all want a better society. So thank you guys for tuning in. This is Coach Clee, your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker saying 10-4 over and out.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm over here counting my stash. Cooper, get out of here. Last time you got me in trouble with Be Safe. This is a good spot to sell my drugs.
Sergeant, be safe. We just got a call for suspicious activity. Copy that, dispatch. Captain Chaos and his K9 Kraken along with me are just now arriving on the scene. We'll stop and check it out.
10-4, Sergeant, be safe.
Oh no, cops! I'm out of here.
Release the Kraken.
Hey, we see your drugs over there. Stop running, treacherous Tony. We will get you.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
Yeah, you say that all the time.
I'm sick of going to jail.
Illegal drugs are a bad decision. Just ask treacherous Tony. This isn't a good view. Take it from me, Sergeant Be Safe. I want you to make good decisions. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.